The night was quiet, but inside the small police station, a heavy silence weighed in the air. A woman stepped through the door, her footsteps quick but careful. Her heart raced, but her face stayed calm. She held a folded piece of paper tightly in her hand, her only proof of what she had just been through. She was here to report something terrible. Her eyes scanned the room, looking for someone who would listen. The fluorescent lights flickered above, casting cold shadows. It wasn't late, but the station felt empty, and the few officers behind the desks barely glanced up when she walked in. She tried not to show how nervous she was, but the knot in her stomach wouldn't loosen. She needed help, and she needed it now. As she approached the counter, one of the officers glanced at her with a smirk, not bothering to hide his doubt. "What's so important this late?" he asked, his voice sharp, almost mocking. Another chuckled softly behind him, and she felt the weight of their eyes, not curious, not concerned, but amused. It was clear they didn't expect her story to be serious. She took a deep breath, steadied herself, and began to explain, but the dismissive looks and quiet laughter from the officers made her question if she was even going to be heard. The room, cold and unfriendly, seemed to close in around her. Yet beneath her calm surface, a quiet fire burned. She wasn't going to leave until they took her seriously. The woman's voice was steady, but inside, her mind replayed every moment of what had happened. She told the officers about the night just a few hours before, how she had been walking home alone after work. The streets were dark and empty, the kind of quiet that made her feel exposed, small. Then, out of nowhere, someone grabbed her from behind. She struggled, but the man was strong. She felt trapped, helpless. She described the fear rushing through her, the way her heart pounded, her breath caught in her throat. She could still feel his hands, rough and cold, and the sharp pain when he pushed her down. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke, but she blinked them back, not wanting to break down. She wanted them to understand, to believe her. The officers, however, seemed to lose interest. One rolled his eyes. "Are you sure it wasn't just someone brushing past you?" he asked, as if her pain was a joke. Another laughed quietly, whispering something to a colleague. The woman felt her throat tighten, frustration bubbling up inside her. How could they not see how real this was? She tried to explain more, the fear that stayed with her even now, the way she hadn't been able to sleep, the nightmares that made her jump awake. She told them about how alone she felt, ashamed for even being in that place at that time. But each time she spoke, a voice cut her off, or a snicker broke the room's silence, confusion mixed with anger. She wondered if she was wrong to come here. Was this how it always was? Would no one listen unless she was someone important? Her hands shook as she clenched them in her lap. The cold of the police station made her feel even smaller, but she didn't stop talking. She didn't run away, she kept telling her story, hoping one person would finally hear the truth, the pain, the fear, the need for justice. The officers exchanged looks behind the counter, their faces showing a mix of boredom and disbelief. One of them smirked, and leaned back in his chair, folding his arms, as if he was ready to dismiss her story with a single word. "Are you sure you're not making a mistake?" he asked, voice dripping with doubt. "Sometimes people get scared, and imagine things. Maybe it wasn't what you think." Another officer chuckled softly, shaking his head. "These things happen a lot. Could be just a misunderstanding, right?" His words felt like a punch, making the woman's chest tighten. She wanted to shout, to tell them exactly how real and painful it was, but she stayed quiet. Her voice had become a whisper. The dismissive glances grew sharper. One officer rolled his eyes loudly, barely hiding his irritation. "You sure you weren't just in the wrong place at the wrong time?" he said, smirking again. The others laughed quietly, sharing a joke at her expense. The woman caught their mocking looks, and felt a cold wave of shame wash over her. Despite the calm she showed on the outside, inside she felt crushed. The hope she had brought with her was breaking apart. She had imagined a place where her voice could matter, where she could find help. Instead, she was met with sneers and disbelief. It was as if the system she trusted was turning its back on her, labeling her story as less important. less true. Her fear grew heavier. Fear not only from the assault, but from the very people who were supposed to protect her. What if no one believed her? What if the man who hurt her walked free because those in charge didn't care? The cold fluorescent lights hummed above, matching the chill in her bones. The police officers kept exchanging smirks and whispers, their faces a mask of disrespect. One even made a careless comment about women making things up for attention, barely quiet enough to be heard. She swallowed hard, fighting back tears. She wanted justice, but now she wasn't sure if justice was even possible. The silence between her words was louder than anything, a silence filled with doubt and disregard. The woman's hands trembled slightly as she reached into her purse. Slowly she pulled out a small worn card, a federal ID. It wasn't just a piece of plastic, it carried weight, authority and respect. The room once filled with sneers and laughter, suddenly grew quiet. The officer's eyes locked onto the card, the smirks vanished, one of them straightened in his chair, his face tightening as he studied the ID. Another quickly stopped whispering to his partner, now watching her with something closer to caution. The cold mocking atmosphere evaporated in an instant, replaced by a heavy tense silence. This card meant something more than she had said with words. It was a symbol of power, a connection to a world beyond their little station. It represented consequences, accountability, and the possibility that ignoring her complaint could come with serious trouble. The woman held the card steady, meeting the officer's eyes. Inside, a quiet strength grew. She wasn't just a scared woman anymore, she was someone who demanded respect and action. The fear that had weighed her down felt lighter, replaced by a steady resolve. For a moment no one spoke. Then the lead officer cleared his throat. His tone changed, no longer sarcastic, but careful and measured. "Let's start over," he said, his voice low. "Tell us everything again, and this time we're going to take it seriously." She nodded, feeling the shift deep inside her. But the question hung in the air, thick and heavy. Would this change in attitude bring justice? Would the officers finally do their jobs, or was it just another act, a performance for someone who showed power? The suspense filled the room. She waited, calm but alert, ready to see what would come next. The change was clear. The officers who had been so quick to laugh and dismiss now pulled out notebooks and pens. Their eyes sharpened, and their voices lost the mocking edge. One of them leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk, clearly focused. "Start from the beginning," the lead officer said, his tone serious. "Tell us exactly what happened." The woman took a steady breath, and repeated her story, this time with the full attention of the room. As she spoke, the officers jotted down notes carefully, no interruptions, no smirks. She spoke calmly but firmly, making sure every detail was clear. When asked questions, she answered with quiet confidence. She demanded that they take her case seriously, reminding them that no one should be dismissed or ignored, no matter who they were. The tension in the room shifted. It wasn't just about power anymore. There was an unspoken understanding that this was important. The officers' postures changed. They sat straighter, their eyes meeting hers instead of darting away. Their voices were respectful, measured, even apologetic. One younger officer, hesitant at first, finally spoke up. "I have to admit," he said quietly, "when you first came in, I didn't believe you. I guess I let my own bias get in the way. I'm sorry for that." The words hung in the air, honest and raw. The woman nodded slowly, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. Relief that at least one person recognized the problem. Sadness because it showed how easy it was for bias to cloud judgment. How many others might have been ignored. Still she didn't lose her calm, instead she held on to her quiet strength, pushing forward. "Please," she said, "investigate this fully. No more doubts, no more excuses." The officers agreed. There was no longer laughter or sneers, only the serious work of seeking truth. The moment felt like a turning point, not just for her case, but for something bigger. The hope that justice might finally begin. The woman stepped out of the police station into the cold night air. A quiet relief settled over her, relief that her story was finally being taken seriously. But beneath that relief was a heavy sadness. She knew this was only the beginning, not the end. Many women like her had come here before, and many more would come after, facing the same walls of doubt and dismissal. She thought about all those voices silenced by disbelief, all the pain hidden behind forced smiles and quiet tears. How often had women been ignored, made to feel small, as if their truth didn't matter. It wasn't just about one night or one assault. It was about a system that often failed to protect, to listen, to care. Her federal ID had changed the way she was treated. Power had opened a door for her, respect had followed, but it shouldn't have been that way. No one's truth should depend on who they are or what they carry in their wallet. Justice should be blind and fair, listening to every voice with the same care. As she walked away, her steps steady, she felt a quiet hope growing inside. Change was slow, the world wasn't fixed overnight. But speaking up mattered, her courage had broken through walls. Her story was a small step toward something bigger, toward holding people accountable, toward making the world a little safer. She knew the road ahead was long and hard, but for the first time she believed it was worth walking, because no matter how dark the night, there was always a chance for light to come through. And that light began with her, and with every woman who refused to be silent.